Are you okay? Here we go. All right. So previously, previously on a design for living, we were going over the instructions for step three. Most meetings that we attend that are not informal meetings like this usually read how it works at the beginning, and they close off with three pertinent ideas: A, that we were alcoholic, life unmanageable; B, no human power can relieve it; C, God could and would if he were sought. And then perhaps the most important line in the book is left out right after the third idea. It says, being convinced of these first two steps, these ideas, we were at step three, which is that we decided to turn our will and life over to God. Just what do we mean by that, and what do we do? And it's interesting. I expect them to tell me where to find God or what they mean by that and what they do. And what they do is they spend 2.5 pages telling me what an unsurrendered life run on self will, or as a good friend of mine said, me trying to have a relationship with God without God looks like. We get to the end of that, and I say, holy moly, these people they're giving me an autobiography, and they've never met me. There's something to it. We get to the end, two full pages later, the bottom of 62, and now starts to give us the instructions. This is the how and why of it. The how and the why to make this decision to allow God to come into our life and take over, because we can't do it on our own. And here's what it says. First of all, we had to quit playing God. Well, what do you mean playing God? Well, we just spent two full pages talking about what playing God looks like. Me trying to get my way, run the show, get people to do what I want. I'd be happy. I'm delusional. I'm in odds with the world. I'm in collision, producing confusion. And I'm a chronic malcontent, complaining to anyone who will listen about how the world done me wrong. That's what playing God looks like. Things are not going the way I think they should, which means they're going the way this other harmonious power has them to go, and I have an issue with it. That's the problem. So here's why. It didn't work. Wow, how simple is that? Let's quit doing this because it's not effective. It's not working. Okay. Next, right after we decided to quit playing God because it didn't work, next, we decided, here's the decision. Hereafter in this drama of life, I'm going to start doing something different because my way's not working. I don't know that it's God's way, but it's no longer my way. Remember, we talked about last week, we stood at the turning point. My sponsor said, you turn at the turning point. I didn't know what the hell to do at the turning point. I thought you sat there and waited for instructions. He said, turn. After in this drama of life, God was going to be our director. He's gonna run the show. I'm gonna be his actor. He is the principal. I'm the agent, which means I work for him, but I don't bind him to anything. He binds me. He is the father, and we are his children. So I got someone that has a benevolence for me that's not my own, and he doesn't always give me what I want, especially if it's not good for me. We don't hand a 2-year-old a sharp, shiny knife just because they can see their face in the reflection. It's not a good idea. This is a good idea though. Most good ideas are simple. If it's not practical, it's not spiritual. If it's not simple, it's not God. If it's a struggle, if it's a battle, if it's a fight, if it's a manipulation, if it's a need for me to impose myself, it's not God. How do we know? Well, we read the first 62 pages. That's how we know. And this concept, this idea, was the keystone of the new and triumphant arch through which we pass to freedom. The evidence that I have made the decision is the inference in the next paragraph. If Bill Swan has taken this position, all sorts of remarkable things follow. I've done nothing but decide to quit doing it my way. If nothing remarkable is happening in my life, what I've done is I read the instructions that I've quoted at a meeting, but I haven't taken the position. Nadja, it's all you, honey. Thank you.
Thank you. Oh, yeah. I remember the first time I had this very first sentence read to me. We had to quit playing God. I was appalled. I was appalled at that notion. I hadn't even realized how much I'd been playing God in my own life. In fact, you know what, guys? This is a program of honesty. I can actually feel it rising in me now because there's a lot of playing God in my life at the moment. And how do I know that I'm playing God? What's a physical manifestation? Let's just go have a look on page. Our bodies will tell us. Our bodies will tell us. Go to page 88. This is what your body feels like when you're playing God. Bill's just spoken about the preceding 62 pages that explains how we tread on other people's toes. They retaliate. We're more gracious. We rest satisfaction. The list goes on ad infinitum. But there's one really simple little cue when we're playing God. And this is when we're sitting with the newcomer or the prospect in front of us. On page 88, it says, "We do not tire so easily, for we are not burning up energy foolishly as we did when we were trying to rearrange life, playing God." So I've been very tired lately, and that's what playing God feels like. Just a little disclaimer there. And I love this where he says, "Next, we decided that hereafter in this drama of life." Now, Bill, I don't know, I didn't meet the guy, but I just love the way he writes. And I love how he gets us. He gets me. Like Bill said, this is a biography written for me, okay, by someone who's just like me, who thinks just like I do. And my life has always been a big drama. Not because I'm an actor in the drama of God, it's just always been a huge, big drama. And if there wasn't any drama and things were going really peaceful, I'd go and make me some. Because I'm a real example of self-will run riot. And I remember my first couple of months in sobriety, I was driving to work, and all of a sudden I pulled off the road. I phoned my sponsor. I said, something's wrong with my program. Something's wrong. Because it's really quiet in my head. And she started laughing. It was a sad laugh. It was a chuckle, but it was a sad laugh too. And she said to me, "Honey, that's called peace of mind." And it was something so unusual that I had to phone somebody about it. Yeah. And then, you've heard me say this many times, and I think I'll say it till forever, is that I've always wanted an identity. I've always wanted to belong somewhere. I've always wanted to be part of something, that fellowship that we crave. I've always wanted that. And I would play any role to fit in anywhere. But you guys give me an identity. Here's 3 of them. I get to be an agent. I get to be an agent for God Inc. It's so cool. I can don my black glasses and, play the role if I want to. I get to be an actor. That's awesome. The red carpet's waiting for me. I knew I was destined for Hollywood. And I get to be a child, but I get to be a sponsor. I get to be a daughter. I get to be a friend. I get to be a sister. I get to be a contributing member of society. Yeah, that's me.
I guess you're waiting for me to read, is that correct? Okay, let's switch back over real quick here, thank you. Very good, thank you. I was inviting some people in not through the phone, so I had to change apparatus because they needed a link. Back here at a Design for Living. When we sincerely took such a position, all sorts of remarkable things followed. We had a new employer, being all powerful. Remember, it tells us at the beginning of how it works, there's one who has all power. And in our second tradition, it defines that power. So there's no confusion, there's no angst, there's no fear. It's an ultimate authority. Ultimate means beyond what I could describe. An ultimate authority, a loving God, as he expresses himself. Since we are agents and expressions of God's love, you've never come to an AA meeting when you meant business and anyone turned you away or wasn't willing to help you. It even talks about that in the book. If he's cordial and mean business, will do anything. We had a new employer, being all powerful. He provided what we needed, our needs, if we kept close to him and performed his work well. How do we keep close to him? We turn away from the things that we've determined have caused our failure. That's what this is about. Moving in the other direction, turning at the turning point. We are moving closer to this power. Not that it's spatial or geographical, But we're going to begin to go inside now, which is where the power resides. That's what they're talking about, staying close, staying in our playpen. As my sponsor says, keep your AA training bra on. Okay. And performed his work well. What does that mean? It means I quit trying to get my way, quit trying to push people around, start to go with the flow, quit complaining, quit producing confusion, quit being in collision, quit having a way. Isn't that amazing how things go? If I never had a way, I'd always be satisfied. If I have a way and don't get it, I'm a chronic malcontent. Established on such a footing, I punch in the morning to work for him. Guess what? All my benefits are taken care of. I get optical, dental, medical, retirement, 401k, 301k, time off, paid vacation. What? Oh my God. I used to have to work 40 hours a week and have nothing at the end of the day to show for it. And I worked a second job and had less. Managing my life, I managed my way into a ground. Established on such a footing means I'm on a new foundation now. We became less and less interested in ourselves. If I'm not trying to have my way, if I'm not doing what I want at your expense, all of a sudden, guess what? I start to lose interest in the guy who's been screwing up my life. I start to pay attention to other people because they're agents of this power. I start to recognize that. My little plans. How about this? God's got a big plan. There's a book my sister reads that says, "For I know the plans I have for you, declares the Lord. Plans of prosperity and not of harm, to give hope in the future." There was no hope, no future, no prosperity, and no good plans in my life when I reached the doors of Alcoholics Anonymous. You can rest assured. Little plans and designs, petty. His thoughts are way above ours. His ways are way over our heads. More and more, this keeps growing. More and more, we became interested in seeing what we could contribute to life instead of me coming always being on the take. All of a sudden, I come to start giving, and guess what I find out? I am overflowed, overwhelmed. You go to a grocery store with coupons all the time, being on the take, you're never satisfied. My sponsor said, if you go to the dump and drop off a load, you'll always be satisfied. Go with a giving spirit, because it's in the giving that we receive. I don't get that as a self-centered person. How could I? I'm clamoring and clutching at what I can hang on to. And I don't realize that nothing happens till I extend to you what's been given to me, because it makes room for more. And most of us have a more mentality. I want more. How the hell you think I got here? More and more, we became interested in seeing what we could contribute to life for others as we felt new power flow in. How does the power flow in? When self starts to flow out, God abhors a vacuum, and so does nature. Something's going to come in to replace what's going out. Breathe in God, exhale self. Grow God, shrink self. That's what my sponsor says. As we felt new power flow in, as we enjoyed peace of mind. Holy moly, I'm not looking at what you're going to get from me because I don't care anymore. I realize it wasn't mine to begin with. As we discovered we could face life successfully, I could show up somewhere and know that I'm enough. And guess what? If I'm not, I can give it away and I'll become enough. What? That's backwards. Of course it is, because you're flawed, Bill Swan. You're the ones who are backwards. We're giving you the right rules. As we became conscious of his presence. Listen, guys, we've only made a decision to quit running our life and then acting like we've made a decision. We haven't even said a prayer yet. We quit treading upstream. We quit swimming upstream. I'm not so tired, like she said. Wow, I'm just kind of going with the flow. As we discovered we could face life successfully, as we became conscious of his presence, immediately, we haven't done anything, we haven't taken a fourth step, we begin to lose our fear of today, tomorrow, or the hereafter. We were reborn. I always wanted a do-over. That's one thing I want. I remember telling myself in junior high, if I could just move to a new city, a new state where no one knew me, I promised I'd behave and make friends. And it didn't matter where I went. I had that opportunity. Within 2 weeks, everyone knew I was an outright mental defect. I want to really pay attention to this line here that just stuck out at me. We begin to lose our fear of today. tomorrow, but most importantly, the hereafter. Do you know, I'm not so sure it was the church that made us believe that we were going to hell if we did certain things. I think my life and the way I lived it based on self, hurting people, violating spiritual principles, what it did is it changed my perception of God. We might not know that till we do a fourth step, but I realized that the resentments that I carried in my heart, the judgment that was in my mind, and the way I reacted, and it cautioned myself in front of people so they didn't get nothing from me. My thinking never said anything about the people that I didn't like. They said everything about the condition of my heart. That's the deal here. I'm trying to change my perception, and the way I do it is by inviting this power to come in and getting out of the way. Could you imagine if I was no longer worried about going to hell for every time I made a mistake? Because what happens is I'm not intentionally hurting people. Therefore, I'm not looking for this God of judgment or wrath. What I find out is he's a loving God and he expresses himself through my little self-centered way of just getting outside of myself to help someone. End of paragraph. Nadja, you're up.
Tag team. We were reborn. What an amazing promise that that paragraph ends on. And there's jam-packed promises in this paragraph. So many. But actually what this paragraph is, this is our work contract. It's quite small and concise because it says here, it starts off when it says, when we sincerely took such a position. So when you come on over and you now work for God, Inc., because remember, prior to that, it says that we became his agents. So if you want to be an agent, you want to come on over to our side and become an agent for God, here's your employment contract, because you have a new employer. So HR is going to give you this. And it's the only terms of this contract is stay close to God and perform his work, not his job, his work well. Not perfectly, not amazingly. You're not going to kill anybody in here. Just perform it well. That's all we got to do. Your KPIs and your quarterly bonuses and your reviews and performance reviews, you just got to do the job well. Isn't that awesome? Because if you're like me, you want to get everything perfectly all the time, listing yourself to death. There's some beautiful promises here. We get to feel new power. Listen, if you're an alky of my type, you want power. That's what life's been. It's just the chasing power, how to get it, how to have power over this one, how to get what someone's taken from me. We get to feel new power. But I'm not going to hang around in this paragraph too much. I just want to end it with, we are reborn. It's done. We're done. We're new creatures. We are new creatures. It's a promise, and it is. That's that psychic change that they're talking about. Right, Bill, you can continue reading on page 63.
Beautiful. And for all that, we started, as we said, at the end of how it works at most meetings with the 3 pertinent ideas. It says we were at step 3, and now all of a sudden it's saying we were now at step 3. Bunch of information I got to get to realize the necessity for a power greater than myself. Many of us said to our Maker, as we understood him, God, I offer myself to thee, to build with me and to do with me as thou wilt. Relieve me of the bondage of self, that I may better do thy will. Take away my difficulties, that victory over them may bear witness to those I would help of thy power, thy love, and thy way of life. May I do thy will always. We thought well before taking this step. I think 60 years and 60 pages is about as well as I need to think. But we thought well before taking this step, making sure we were ready, that we could at last abandon ourselves utterly to him. Now, what they do, because some of us are twisted about the these and the thous, the Shakespearean narrative and all that, want to go back and say, well, that sounds like the church. Hold on. We know what you're thinking. We found it desirable to take this spiritual step with an understanding person, such as our wife, best friend, or spiritual advisor. But it is better to meet God alone than with someone who might misunderstand. Guess what? If you don't like the Shakespearean twist, the wording was quite optional. What do you mean? Use your own words. My sponsor told me, talk to God in a language that you understand, and I promise you, you will be heard. It's real simple. Sister Ignatia used to say to the drunks in Cleveland that came in knowing that, and most of them being church folks, I won't say what religion it was, but it's known as the universal truth. Most of them would come in and say, God would want nothing to do with me. Look at my life. Sister Ignatia said, you go to God, tell him you're sorry and you want to try things his way. It's that simple. Like my sponsor says, and we may not realize it now, but we will if we continue along this process, that God has been drawing us to him without us even knowing it. As Ralph said yesterday, God is thirsty for us. He wants a relationship with us. He created us. He's our maker. Look at the terms they're using. And they're talking to just garden variety drunks here saying, guess what? You matter too. We know that we think that God loves us more than anyone else when we finally awaken. That's probably as lopsided as when we think he wanted nothing to do with us. Guess what? We're all children of a living and loving creator. That's what the book tells us. No favorites with God. Although I beg to differ with you, but I won't do it on the recording. Here we go. Better to meet God alone than one who might misunderstand. So what does that mean? Someone might deter me from what I'm driving at and say, you know what, you're a good guy after all, Bill Swan. You don't have to go through all that. No, it's not a big deal. Hey, guess what? We don't listen. When I became alcoholic, crushed by a self-imposed crisis, if there wasn't a power greater than me that could help me, I was doomed. The book says that. I got very few options here. One is to go on to the bitter end, drinking and drugging myself to death. The other is to seek this power. And guess what? It's not that we're stupid, that that's a hard choice. You know, we hear it said about meetings and they laugh about it like only an alcoholic would say that. That's not true. There's another book I read that says, I set before you each day life and death. Choose life. We even need instructions as non-alcoholic people. The reason that these are such decisions of a lot of like, oh my God, what am I going to do? I'm between a rock and a hard spot, is because neither of them look attractive. I can't imagine life without anesthetizing myself, because why do you think I started drinking in the first place? And I'm pretty convinced that if there is a God, he wants nothing to do with me. And they're saying, guess what? Move on, you might be wrong. And what we find out is, in fact, we are wrong. Our thinking's flawed because of the way we live, not because of the nature of this power. Okay, here we go. Voicing it without reservation. This was only a beginning, though if honestly and humbly made an effect, sometimes a great one, very great one, was felt at once. Sometimes the surrender is so effective that just say, I give up. The collapse of the ego is so demonstrative that the Holy Spirit, if you will, the Spirit of truth, the great Spirit, fills us. And all of a sudden I say, oh my God, like Bill Wilson says, so this is the God of my fathers. This is the God of the preachers. We begin to have an experience. But guess what? Even if there's no effect, we followed the instructions. That's all we have to do here. The cake doesn't look the way it does when I put the batter in the first time and start to mix it. It looks kind of clumpy and lumpy. But as I beat it more and more, the consistency, I start realizing that I'm getting the evidence of the instructions on the box. And it says, when it gets to this consistency, we pour it in the pan. Even though I see nothing but a raw pancake in the pan, I put it in the oven at 375 degrees. I set the timer, and then I don't stick around and keep putting my hand in it, checking it. I follow the instructions, and I'm going to see what happens. And I'll say one more thing before I give it to Nadia with this paragraph. Remember, we talked about Jim. Jim made a beginning. His beginning had no staying power, and he was drunk short time after he got what he came for, his wife and his job. This says this is a good beginning. Is that correct, or did I miss it? No, it's only a beginning. It doesn't even say good. So all we did is what Jim did to this point. I made a decision that I'm drinking myself to death, not a good idea. I believe that you have a solution, and I say I'm going to participate with the solution. Jim did the very same thing in chapter 3. Nadia know more about him. I think they went to school together. I'll let her talk now.
Yep, you can find that reference that Bill is talking about when we look at the word only, or the phrase only a beginning on page 35, the 4th paragraph. Just as a little line out, and you can go cross-reference. I love this. I'm going to hang out here a little bit because this is just so powerful, this prayer. And it's just like you said, Bill, that absolute surrender. And then nature abhors a vacuum, right? So when I let go, something filled me up. There was something powerful that filled me up. And they talk about this. Don't be disconcerted when some of us go, wow, man, I felt something amazing. And some of us are sitting in here going, no, but mine is like educational and slow. So they speak about the different kinds of spiritual awakening / spiritual experience in the back of the book on page 567. Do yourself a favor and hang out on those 2 pages and just spend some time looking at the nature of spiritual experiences. Some are sudden and some are slow, like the educational variety. There's no monopoly on how it needs to be. Page 567, spiritual experience. Really, I recommend. And in fact, Bill recommends it like 4 times before we actually go over there with the little asterisks at the bottom of the page in the chapters preceding. But what I want to say here on this 3rd step prayer is that it says here, we say to our maker. Why do you think he does that? Because one of the promise preceding that is we were reborn. So here we are being molded by the potter as clay, this new little human, this new creation. We are speaking now to our maker. We've been speaking to the Father of the light, the universal creator, intelligence, God, etc. But now we are speaking to our maker, the guy, this force, this power that is reborn us, by which we are reborn, and now we are being shaped. And we're saying to him, God, I offer so that's me talking, self, like selfishness, self-centeredness, take it. I give it to you so that you, maker, can build with me, not build. So this is a partnership. God and I are going to build. God and I are going to show everybody power and love and a way of life. God and I are going to build and do. It's a partnership. We're working with our principal. We are an agent. So we've been given authority to work for him, to follow his rules and to have his authority on planet Earth. Take away the bondage of self. Again, selfishness, self-centeredness, the way that it manifests and the way that it's kept us in fisticuffs, handcuffs our whole lives. And like Bill said, Nana, hell on earth. And the worst part is it's a hell I put myself in. I put myself in that hell over and over and over and over, because the great obsession of every alcoholic is that we can control and enjoy. We thought well before we take this step, making sure we are ready. I don't know, sometimes I feel like the step just happens to me. Yeah. I love this as well, where it says, but it is better to meet God. So we get to meet God. We get to have a divine appointment with him. We get to schedule some time to do this with God, to go and have this real one-on-one and say, right, here's my life. Here's my thought life. Here are my actions. I really haven't done a great job, but I really do think that maybe you can. Can we do this together? Can we have some form of a partnership? Yeah. And again, like I say, though if honestly and humbly made, an effect, sometimes a very great one, and it is fleshed out in great detail in that spiritual experience appendix at the back of the book. Thanks, Bill.
Yeah, we have great benefactor, excuse me, of Alcoholics Anonymous by the name of Dr. Harry Tebow. He observed something, and they're concurring with it right here. It talks about when we became crushed by a self-imposed crisis as alcoholics, we can no longer postpone or evade. All of a sudden, the drawing takes place. It's like a carrot. We have this new power flow in. We discover something happens and we get this effect. And guess what? Harry Tebow says the recuperative power of the alcoholic ego is unparalleled. And I might think I have something to do with this good feeling. And what that means is I want to sit there and bask in the sunshine and eat bonbons. Guess what it tells us? The experience might be a great one. Once. Next, that means right after, we launched out on a course of vigorous action, the first step of which is a personal house cleaning. So I kind of look at it like this. I just had a pop in a tube, a tire tube, inner tube. What I want to do is have that alcoholic fix-a-flat, catch it up before the air goes out. What happens is the air has been removed here, and now there's room for something to come in. But I've got to determine how the flat was caused. Do I have a nail in the tire? Is there glass in there? Does the tube need to be replaced? Because I don't have a spare tire. I'm a drunk. I'm driving on 3 donuts by now, anyhow. One more flat tire would put me out of the game forever. Many of us had never attempted this. What we do is keep plugging the hole rather than looking at what's causing it. Though our decision, step 3, was vital, life sustaining, and crucial, which means important in most languages, it could have little permanent. We need permanence. We want permanent recovery, permanent sobriety, a one-time sobriety date that doesn't have the spirit of rotation. That's for service positions, not abstinence. In effect, unless at once followed by a strenuous, means I got to put some work in, effort to face, I'm going to look at and be rid of. I'm going to be willing to let go of the things in ourselves which had been blocking us. Blocking us from what? Blocking us from relationship with the power, from peace of mind, from happiness, from relationship with others. We're going to talk about we've talked about the bedevilments already. How about if I wasn't a prey to misery and depression? How about if I wasn't full of fear? How about if I didn't have a feeling of uselessness and self-pity? How about if I didn't walk into a room and everyone wanted to fight, but they want to embrace and hug and be glad to see me? What would I do for that? Would I pick up a pen and go inside and help me to see what's blocking me from all those good things that I see other people get almost with no effort? Oh my God, I try so hard to get people to like me, and guess what? By the things I try, because I'm self-reliant, I drive them out of my life because for some reason the self-seeking motive always trumps the desire to be loved and needed and wanted. What I need to do is love, for you to have a need, for you to have a want, and for me to meet it. And all of a sudden something happens. I'm more comfortable in my own skin and you don't look so threatening to me. I don't know that yet, but we're going to find out when we pick up the pen. Our liquor was but a symptom. Now you'll hear that in meetings. Someone say, well, alcohol is just a symptom. Well, guess what? It's a big symptom when I'm drinking it. And the last day of my drinking it was the only symptom. And it's the only symptom of alcoholism. And that'll kill me right away. So let's not underestimate that symptom. We'll go back to the beginning of how it works, where it says, remember that we deal with alcohol, cunning, baffling, powerful. Although it be symptomatic, it is deadly. Let's keep that in mind. So we had to get down to causes and conditions from the blockage, from the separation, from the need to drink, the thing that activates the disturbance inside of me, which compels the obsession to return. And then I pick up to satisfy the obsession by picking up the first drink and setting the allergy in motion. Hell, that's book stuff. We already read all that. Let's move forward. Oh, Nada, you want to say anything about that paragraph, or should I get into therefore?
Yeah, just a second. I just want to apologize. I've got teenagers in the house and they rule. I work for them, teenagers.inc actually. I just want to just mention here as well that it says unless this could have a permanent effect unless at once followed by a strenuous effort to face steps 45 and to be rid of the things in ourselves which have been blocking us, step 6 and 7. And I'm gearing up for that. I can't wait till we get over there. So please continue, Bill. Thank you.
Therefore, we started upon a personal inventory. This was step 4. A business which takes no regular inventory usually goes broke. Taking a commercial inventory is a fact-finding and fact-facing process. It is an effort to discover the truth about the stock in trade. One object is to disclose damaged or unsaleable goods, to get rid of them promptly and without regret. If the owner of the business is to be successful, he cannot fool himself about values. Now, I've said this before, and I'm going to stand on record to say it again. We are not at step 4 yet. I don't know if these are transition paragraphs or a continuum of step 3, the decision. They're giving me some information of why it's a good idea. And I say that, if you'll indulge me, Nadja, I'd like to read one more paragraph and then we can back up because I had another revelatory experience this weekend and I want to share it with you. We did exactly the same thing with our lives, the same thing that an owner of a business is going to do. We're going to find out what's saleable, what's unsaleable, and what's keeping customers from coming in. Why am I marking things down 95% off and people still ain't coming in? We did exactly the same thing with our lives. We took stock honestly. First, we searched out the flaws in our makeup, which caused our failure. Now, pay attention to this next line because I never read it the way I read it this weekend. Being convinced that self, manifested in various ways, was what had defeated us, we considered its common manifestations. And I believe what they're saying is the way I became convinced that self defeated me is I've just read the last 3 pages of how self has defeated me. Now we're going to find out what the manifestations of self are in the 4th step, which the instructions are about to begin. As I said, I think this is either a continuation or a transitory period telling us what's going on in the interim. Nadja?
Yeah, Bill, thank you. There was something that I experienced last Sunday when I went through this work was it says here, taking a commercial inventory is a fact-finding, fact-facing, and we get to discover the truth. So what I realized here is that he is actually preempting step 5 here, because that is the fact-finding, fact-facing, truth-discovering step. That is where we put forward this inventory, this resentment inventory, fear, harm. We look at the nature of our wrongs, the shortcomings, the defects of character, and we get to see our old ideas about our lives. For those that have done this work, I'm talking about those that have done this work and who may be going through another round. Think about that step 5 process where you all of a sudden you are now faced with old ideas around your thought life, your work life, your sex life, your life as a parent. It's a finding out process. It's a facing, we face the truth because we get to swallow huge chunks about ourselves. Bill was in my, like, I'm not a professional by any chance, but this was an epiphany that I had, that he was preempting that amazing step 5 experience. Yeah, that's my little nugget out of this paragraph.
I looked up the word therefore. Something told me to. And it's telling us, though our decision was crucial and vital, it wouldn't have any permanent effect. Alcohol's a symptom, so we got to get down to causes and conditions of the separation and blockage. And therefore means for that reason, consequently, for the reason that I have to get down to causes and conditions, I need to do something. Consequently, I'm going to take a 4th step. And these are just principles. Remember, like Kurt Z says, eventually the numbers have to fall off the steps. This is a continuum based on my 1st step experience that something else has to happen, because if not, I'm doomed and I'm hopeless. I'll tell you what, the greater the 1st step experience, the motivation for doing the rest of the steps comes into play. If I'm just checking out AA and it's the first place I stop trying to quit drinking, the connection between the 50 other, if it's the last house on the block and it's the first place I stop, Boy, there might be 27 other addresses or doors I might want to knock on if I don't find what you got appealing. And I don't think I like your inventory process. Let me go knock on the neighbor's door and see what they got to offer. Most of us have to be pretty badly mangled, the book says, before we begin this surrender, begin this journey. Say, you know what? I have tried everything. I am convinced of pertinent idea B. No human power, not one I can muster, not one that can be imposed on me by external forces, judges, love of my mother, threat of losing my daughter. None of those things is sufficient, including, I never went to jail, but they used to take me a lot, including incarceration. I was thinking about this. I'll share this thought as long as we're on record. Bill Wilson describes the mental, emotional, and spiritual torture of alcoholism. How many people do we know in AA that demonstrate the legal aspect of alcoholism? I take meetings into our prisons here. I met a guy that's 5 years younger than me, 6 years younger than me. 40 years of his adult life, from the time he was 18 to 58, he spent locked up behind bars because of a decision he made under the influence of alcohol. Oh my God, we celebrate Bill's story and we love it that he wrote this and all that he went through. There are people that have killed people in DUI, have killed people in a blackout, wake up with their best friend or their spouse is murdered, and they don't know why they're sitting in jail and they can't defend themselves because they have no alibi they can come up with. This was just the beginning of alcoholism. We see so many manifestations here, it would compel me to get down to causes and conditions because the book says some of us are dangerously and disgustingly antisocial, which means I'm a dangerous alcoholic when I take a drink. I can't guarantee with any certainty what's going to happen. I didn't mean to get behind the wheel of a car drunk or high again, but I had to because I had to get more to feed the allergy. Oh my God, we've been grace of God. Like my sponsor said, grace doesn't always look like grace, but we got some. Resentment is the number one offender. Oh,
Oh,
sorry. Yeah.
sorry. Can I jump in there quickly?
I'm not
Two
going to
things
say
I
no
just
on
want to.
recording now, Joe. Wait till they stop it. Go ahead.
I think we still got some time. I think we can stop at resentment because now we're launching into the first inventory, and that's meaty, right? But I'm so glad that you spoke about that murderous, dangerously antisocial nature of ours. You work with inmates, and I ask my sponsees, the people that I take through this work, I ask them to tap into that. Maybe you haven't been in prison yet, but I'm telling you, I know that you have plotted the murder of somebody. That when you watch Breaking Bad, you went, damn, I wish I'd watched that much earlier in my drinking career, because that hydrochloride act in the bath bit, that's like the perfect way to come up. I remember thinking that, and that's just like, I encourage, it says here, he says, we took stock honestly. It is one of the three indispensables, is honesty, open-mindedness, willingness. Where are they talking about that? What am I talking about? Let's go look. The three things that we have to bring to this fact-finding process. Oh, now I have to remember what page it is. Help me, somebody. All right, we'll get to it now. Here it is. Page 568. Page 568. These are the essentials. The thing is, I can't give you honesty. I can't give you willingness, and I can't give you open-mindedness. The spiritual principles I can't give you. We're going to tap into those things, and that's going to become the power in your life. But the three things that you, as someone who has to admit that you're powerless, and you are, because you come in here and you are convinced, because you're broken, you're beat up, you're bruised, you've lost everything. You're living on the street, maybe not really in the physical realm, maybe in your mind, you're homeless, you're done, you're tapped out. But here's the deal. You have got three things inside of you. You have three resources inside of you. You have honesty, you have open-mindedness, and you have willingness. And you got to drag those three critters to every single one-on-one you have with your sponsor, or to the step work. They're in you, and you're going to cultivate them. You have a little bit of modicum of power in those 3 essentials. And Bill talks about honesty over and over and over. And it is in this step 4 process that I encourage, like I was encouraged, to go in to that still small voice that has plotted the murder of your ex-husband 1, 2, and 3. The still small voice that says, when you have an argument, I wish they'd just die, and you mean it. Bring that. Bring it out. Bring it out and put it on paper. Bring it out and put it on paper. And yeah, I'm at that. I'm going to, because what I want to say is, sorry, in conclusion, is that still small voice, that murderous voice that is an inmate that should be locked up with life sentence because of the thoughts that we've had? When we can get that still small voice out on paper, we get to hear the true still small voice, the true voice, the one that we've been telling to shut up our whole lives, and that we've just been numbing down and pressing down because we want to do things our way. It hasn't worked. That's why we're all sitting here on a Monday night. Well, it's Monday night for me. And we're reading some strange book that's got some really antiquated language in it. And we're sitting with a bunch of people that we probably might never see in real life. I do hope to God that I do, because there's some souls on here that I've walked a long road with, shoulder to shoulder. It's time to get to hear the still small voice, because great reality is deep down inside every man, woman, and child. Yeah, and I think on that note, if you've got anything more to add, Bill, that we leave it for
Our
next week.
statement I want to keep in mind for next week. This common manifestations of self that we're going to look at, 3 common ones to alcoholics and maybe other humans as well, but to us, they deadly and dangerous: resentment, fear, and harms done others, both in the relationship, pursuit of sex, and just in general. What dawned on me when I saw that, being convinced, was that they spend 3 pages. You know what happens when people retaliate? I get angry. When confusion is produced, I get afraid. When I'm in collision and conflict with others, I fight back and I hurt others. Those 3 pages show me what we're going to find in step 4, how self manifests and defeats me every time. Most of the stuff that I'm reacting to never even happened. We're open for questions and comments, my love. Thank you.